Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And everyone, welcome into Computer America. That's all messed up. Everyone, I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for the program. Today on the show, you may have guessed, it is the first Friday of the year. I hope everyone had a great New Year. And we have Ralph Bond here to talk about, 4 amazing stories. And this is kind of our pre-CES, the calm before the storm, because following, today, as of this recording, it is the 2nd, so that means I think CES is going to be, usually there's like a pre-show event, so I'm a little fuzzy on the beginning. I want to say it's the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th this year is CES, and we're going to have stories and a lot of recordings and reportings and guests from that event. So look forward to that. CES is always a special, magical time where you are completely wiped out from the holidays. You're supposed to be refreshed from the holidays, but everyone knows you're wiped out from the holidays, and then they're like, hey, this is going to be the busiest time of year for you. So enter CES. It's always a lot of fun, big announcements, and look forward to that. ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including today's show notes that has to do with these amazing notes that Ralph makes as he's doing these stories. And if you want to find out anything and everything about today's program, well, you can come out to Computer America, find the Ralph Bond section at the top, find today's show notes, and links, videos, everything and anything about today's stories that if you're like, I can't believe it, I got to share that. Well, Ralph makes it very simple. So with that being said, let's go ahead, bring Ralph on and just have fun with it. Ralph, he is our longtime Computer America contributor. He is our science and tech trends correspondent, and he'll explain what that means. But Ralph, welcome back onto the program. Happy New Year. How have you been?
Hey, great. Happy New Year to you and everybody. Wow, I'll tell you, here we go. Another year of great stories to share. So if you're new to the show, of course, welcome. Let me explain what Ben and I do each Friday. What we do is we highlight 4 articles that show us key trends and developments in all things science and tech, including artificial intelligence, robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, agricultural tech, construction technology, space research, physics, on and on and on, you name it. But here's the key. Most important of all, we're going to give you hope for a better future thanks to amazing breakthroughs happening every day in the world of science and technology.
Absolutely. And I don't know if it was just me and, just kind of watching some of the festivities with New Year's and whatnot, but Ralph, just generally, and maybe again, it is just me, pretty hopeful this year. 2025 was a very strange, weird, lot of headlines, a lot of, I think a lot of people are kind of looking forward to putting 2025 into the history books. And, I think there's some hope for 2026. So, let's start out the new year correct, and let's go ahead and do story number 1. And this has to do, of course, AI didn't go anywhere. I'm not saying we closed the book on AI, but
No.
Let's talk about some AI.
Yeah, absolutely. This first story comes from techexplore.com, and the headline is Real World Helper Exoskeletons Come Closer to Reality with AI Training. This has to do with the whole field of robotics involving exoskeletons. These are devices, attachments to your body that help people maybe with physical challenges and so forth. And this has to do with a breakthrough in using AI to help design and make these products or make these systems more accessible. So this is a really cool story. Let's jump right in. Georgia Tech. There you go. Georgia Tech researchers have developed an AI tool that can train exoskeleton controllers here's the key, without requiring extensive human data collection in specialized labs. We're going to better understand that as we go more into the story. Traditionally, building and improving exoskeletons requires massive amounts of time, money, and human trials. Each design change meant starting over with a new data collection. That's the problem that we've had in designing exoskeletons to date. But here's what happens with the Georgia Tech breakthrough. So how the Georgia Tech AI tool works. And this is really clever. This is interesting. The system uses CycleGAN. And let me explain that if you're listening to us and not viewing the video. It's cycle, C-Y-C-L-E, and then uppercase G-A-N crunched together, CycleGAN. An AI originally designed to translate satellite images into ground level views. And when I read this first, I went, what? And so I did a little side note research here. That's one thing I do with the show notes. Ben talked about that. Come out to computeramerica.com. You can get the links, pictures, and additional information, such as what I'm going to give you right now about CycleGAN. So CycleGAN is a type of generative adversarial network designed to transform images from one style or domain to another. For example, like turning a photo of a horse into a zebra or a summer landscape into a winter one without needing matching pairs of training images. So that's the technology they turned to apply to exoskeleton design, Ben. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, just simply, you're not really transforming anything to at least I guess as far as the human brain is concerned, a landscape into a landscape is not a crazy transformation. But Ralph, I think we're all very familiar with AI at this point when it comes to making fun pictures and trying to let your imagination run wild. But to see it in use in a research setting, it's like, oh yeah, that exact same thing could be very applicable here. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, even at this point in the article, I was still going, okay, that's great. Wait a minute, how does this work? Well, instead of working with images, of course, the Georgia Tech AI maps large data sets of human movement without exoskeletons to predict how people would move with them. Let that sink in. How clever, right? It then estimates joint torque and provides real-time assistance at the hip and knee, boosting effort by up to 20%. So augmenting your body by 20%. It's critical for people that maybe have mobility issues or leg and knee or leg muscle issues and so on. This approach eliminates the need for repeated retraining when devices are updated, making exoskeleton development far more practical and scalable. And by the way, I'll stop for a second, again, promote the show notes, because again, you'll get links if you want to dive deeper. We're just giving you the highlights, the greatest hits of each story, right? To get more information, to dig deeper, to understand this more fully, please get the show notes. Anyway, going on here, startup companies and labs without specialized equipment can now more easily deploy wearable robotic devices. Oh, there you go. It's democratizing this.
Yeah, it's and honestly, 20% doesn't sound like a whole lot, because I guess thanks to Hollywood, when you imagine someone putting on like an exoskeleton, suddenly they're like superhuman. But 20%, Ralph, for a completely healthy individual, that's 20% easier, doing a manual labor job. That's 20% further for someone who may have walking disabilities to be able to, get through a grocery store, or, go for a walk and get even further. Just that 20% is actually a huge number that, would affect a lot of people in a very profound way.
Yeah, good point, Ben. And one thing I thought about too when I was going through this article, think about people who may be recovering from a knee surgery or something like this. That 20% could help them be more functional earlier.
It could be the difference between being able to stand by themselves or not stand by themselves.
There it is. Yeah, exactly. So to wrap this one up, broader implications of all of this, the AI acts like a translator, converting cheap, large-scale biomechanics data into usable exoskeleton control signals. This breakthrough could accelerate innovation across robotics, prosthetics, and rehabilitation technologies, opening doors for wider industry collaboration. And once again, if you're looking for an uplifting news story, this is a good one.
Yeah, I think people are going to start seeing a lot of headlines about the effects of AI when it comes to a couple of things. Ralph, I don't know if you've been following the headlines when it comes to computer RAM for the past year, but there's a reason the RAM has 400% increased in the past year. Something that used to cost $100 is now $400 to $500. That's because of AI, and I've heard rumors that graphics cards are going to increase by 50-60% or double in the next year. Like there's going to be some things where we're like, okay, is AI really worth it, because it's starting to really inconvenience me? But stories like these are kind of the end result. It's not just about turning a horse into a zebra or playing around with those funny pictures on your phone. It's also about research like this that could really accelerate and help people in a very real way, in a very quick way. So
yeah, that's such a good point. And again, it's something you and I over the last several years have really seen so many negative stories about artificial intelligence, particularly in the mainstream general purpose press, that for alarmist and exciting reasons or whatever. But there's such a positive side to AI, and that's part of what we do every Friday, is bring that to the forefront.
Yep. Yeah, it's really going to have a very good effect on research institutions and universities, as we've seen. So, story number 1, you can find out more again in the research article. Like Ralph said, just the highlights, just some key points, but there's always more if you want to find out more. So, story number 1. Story number 2, we're going to go from artificial intelligence to augmented reality, which we can even tie this in with a headline that I saw just this morning, Ralph. This is going to be an area that I think has been sluggish for a little bit, but it's going to really pick up because there's still interest in mainstream, big tech companies. Ralph, I kid you not, just this morning, I saw a headline. Google is going to come out with a new pair of Google Glass this year. So I don't know if you remember the Google Glass from like 2011, 2012. Well, they're coming at it again. So this is not Google Glass. This story is about augmented reality, in a university setting, what they're trying to do with it. But just want to say, you're going to see more augmented reality in the future. It's not just a passing trend. So story number 2, Ralph.
I agree with you 100%. And I think for me personally, before we dive into this next story, talking about augmented reality and looking at trends, I still think it's going to stay in the category of specialized applications for, production control purposes, or for architecture, doing walkthrough through architecture and that sort of thing for designers. I still think it'll stay a specialized thing. But this is an interesting development. This one comes out of the University of Texas at Dallas. And the headline here is, new augmented reality technology can turn any surface into, and it should have said, a virtual air keyboard. And think about augmented reality, if you're familiar with this at all. In the world of augmented reality for a number of years now, you could do air typing. You could have a projected virtual keyboard, and you would move your fingers as you held your hands up and type, as it were, right? So that's been out there. What they're talking about is turning any surface into a virtual keyboard with tactile feedback, you're going to find out. So it's a very, very curious story. So you can see the images if you're looking at the video right now. It's very interesting. The fella has on a traditional VR, AR headset. It's got little devices on the fingers, on the thumbs, and then there's a little kind of device on the coffee cup. Now, right away, if you're looking at the show notes online, you go, well, that's a lot of gear. Sure, this is very early. Over time, I predict they'll get this down to something very, very compact. But let's get into the story. Researchers at the University of Texas at Dallas have created Prop Type, that's PROP Type, run together, a patent pending augmented reality system that overlays a virtual keyboard onto physical objects. Everything from bottles and cans to books and mugs, you name it. And the goal, Ben, is to solve one of AR's biggest pain points, that being virtual typing in midair, which is slow, inaccurate, and physically tiring. So they realized typing with an augmented reality situation is an important thing to be able to do. but it's a pain in the fanny so far, right?
I guess so. You can think about, and this is essentially the researcher again. If you saw the picture, holding a coffee mug as if it were a phone.
Yeah.
Kind of on the side of it. But I guess what they're saying, Ralph, is kind of Minority Report with the arms in the air, having to suspend your arms, lift them with your shoulders, and then type
Good
like
one.
that. That's the strenuous part.
Good one. Good one. Yeah, the Minority Report reference is a great way to visualize what's been available and now what they're trying to do here with this research. So how does prop type work, this new technology? Well, it uses an AR, VR headset, very off-the-shelf device, fingertip sensors for each hand, and a sensor attached to any curved, flat, or irregular surface object the user is holding, such as a water bottle, coffee cup, thick book, you name it, as we alluded to before, and to project a virtual keyboard on the surface. See, it's more like a keyboard you'd have on your smartphone. And the system adapts to flat or curved surfaces, letting users type on objects that feel natural in the hand. And users can design their own layouts, adjusting size, spacing, and visual effects for comfort and accessibility. And it provides, I think this part's really great, it provides real tactile feedback, unlike floating in the air AR keyboards, which improves speed and accuracy. So that tactile feedback improves speed and accuracy. That's pretty darn interesting. And the system maps pardon me, try that again. The system maps finger taps with high precision, effectively turning any handheld item into a portable, ergonomic typing surface. And a little side comment from me, in its current form, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's a lot of gear to achieve the result, but still very interesting. And Ben, you and I know this is just the beginning. It'll get miniaturized. It'll get modified over time. Just stand by. Maybe in the next couple of years, we'll see this come to market. TBD.
Absolutely. So, and also if you're watching the video portion, I actually did find the video that they made for it. It's actually pretty funny. They put a little bit of effort into it, Ralph. But it does show, but it does show very clearly, them putting the keyboard on, things that you would normally hold in your hand, and they have cans of soda, they have water bottles, books. It makes sense, really.
Very clever.
And obviously this is like a student project, so it's not, this is not like a go out and buy this today kind of thing.
No, not
but
at all.
a proof of concept, it's a very interesting idea, one that I had never really considered.
Isn't that something? Yeah, it's so clever. And again, it's just the beginning. That's part of what we do with the show. We give you a lot of stories that are twinkle in the eye, early stage stuff that I want you, and Ben and I want you to watch and think about and track.
Yep. And you even have, some special effects here because, this is all through augmented reality.
Yeah.
You can turn your keyboard into lava, for instance, which, he did right there, or have sparks fly off the keyboard as you type.
Yes.
Make it look more exciting than just a regular keyboard.
Yes.
But yeah, it's, not a bad idea. I'm sure a version of it will eventually hit consumers, but yeah, very, very, very cool. Good research.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
Yep. So story number 2, you can see more there. And again, we'll have a link to the video as well there in the show notes by the time that you hear this. Story number 2, story number 3. Let's go ahead and skip on down here. And let's talk about, a realistic brain. I know, we've never had one of those before. No, a realistic brain. And turns out, according to the picture, Ralph, it's fuzzier than you would expect it to be. But here we are. So what is this?
Okay. Well, normally, folks, if you're longtime viewers or listeners to the show, you know that we typically do the 4th story of the set of 4 in medical technology. This time, we're going to do 2 in a row. So story 3 and 4 are going to be medical technology related. This one comes from sciencealert.com. Headline, Supercomputer creates one of the most realistic virtual brains ever seen. Yeah, this is great stuff. So let's get into this. Little setup here. Getting a better understanding of how the brain works is tricky, as living brains aren't easily prodded and analyzed. Yeah, that's right. That's why there's been, Ben, you know this, this whole field over the last number of years of developing brain organoids in the lab to do experiments on it, to do test drugs and so on. And this is sort of related to better understanding of how the brain works virtually instead of having to prod a living brain or even an organoid for that matter. So going on, scientists now have a new simulation of a mouse's brain to refer to, one of the most comprehensive that's ever been put together. Once again, great debt to mice and rats and other lab animals for all the sacrifices and contributions they give to us. The creation was led by a team from the Allen Institute in the United States and the University of Electrocommunications in Japan. Cool collaboration. And it may allow diseases such as Alzheimer's to be modeled and studied in greater detail. And the simulation models an entire mouse cortex. While this isn't nearly as large or intricate as the human brain, which contains billions of neurons, there are similarities between human and rodent brains. So this could be a useful study tool. Early research, guys, early. Now, the numbers... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, we often talk about the crucial role that animal testing plays in a lot of this research. And, Ralph, even if it's not a human brain, even for researchers, I'm sure if they could set up, essentially a million virtual rat brains and be able to test a million different experiments at once, not only do you save a million test rats, which is, good, but hey, researchers will be able to get their research done much, much quicker just in that step. Like this is a, even though it's just a mouse brain, very crucial.
Yeah, exactly. The good point. And going on here with the story, the numbers are impressive. The virtual mouse brain contains 9 million neurons, as well as 26 billion synapses or neuron connectors. And there are 86 interconnected regions in the brain simulation, and it can process quadrillions of calculations every second. Okay. And to put this into perspective, the real and full mouse brain contains roughly 70 million neurons in a space about the size of an almond. The complexity of the simulation means that researchers can watch. Check this out. The complexity of the simulation means that researchers can watch as models of cognition, consciousness, and disease spread through the brain. It's a three-dimensional moving map that shows individual neurons firing and connecting. And some of the ways this could be used to wrap this up, according to the researchers, are to test hypotheses on how seizures spread in the brain or how brain waves contribute to focus without any need for repeated, invasive, physical brain scans. Ta-da!
It's really amazing, and the video that we just showed up there, it seems like a nice little web of interconnected flashing lights to us, that looks vaguely brain shaped. But I'm sure to a researcher to be able to test different parts of what causes a seizure, I guess is what they're going for. Very, very crucial research. This honestly feels like, Ralph, like the difference between the weather was. And then they kind of go, here's what the weather is outside our station. Here's what the weather is right now. And in the past, 10, 15 years, Ralph, we're like, okay, here's what the weather will be in 1 week's time. Yeah. And it's, the difference between looking back or analyzing in real time versus predicting and being able to look ahead. And
interesting.
That is, imagine what that did for weather. Imagine what that could do for brain research.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
It's a very night and day process. So very, very cool. I was a little misled because honestly, Ralph, turns out rat brains look kind of like human brains. I was like, oh, wow, they created a human. Nope, rat brain. But still, good stuff.
Well, you could go on a lot about comparisons of the mouse, rat, rodent brain and the human brain. Human behavior makes me think, yeah, we're a lot of rats.
That's true. My wife finds cheese no matter where she goes. So, yeah. It's very similar. So, story number 3. Story number 4. Let's go ahead and go on down to this one. And this one is, I'm sure, I don't know if, and to actually get into the nitty gritty, you're going to go ahead and do that. But there's been talk in the past about what really causes human aging, because
Yes.
it's not this, you just turn 80, 90 and suddenly things just start shutting off. It's like, no, there's a physical
Yes.
process here that
Yes.
causes aging, and I think we're about to get into it. And Ralph, we're still learning a lot about it even today. So story number 4.
No, you're so right, Ben. The whole field of understanding what's going on with the mechanics of aging, to your point, is a field of research that's just on fire across the whole world. And this last story for today is a good example. This one comes from sciencealert.com. Headline: Scientists discover a way to recharge aging human cells. Oh yeah, this is really cool stuff. So scientists at Texas A&M University found a way to recharge aging human cells by boosting their mitochondria. And mitochondria, we're going to do a little side note here, the cell's energy powerhouses. So side note, I inserted mitochondrion, plural, mitochondria, is a double membrane bound organelle present in animals, plants, fungi, and other organisms whose cells contain a true membrane-bound nucleus and other specialized organelles, and often called the powerhouse of the cell because they generate most of the cell's usable energy. Okay, so keep this in mind as a setup here. New research by Texas A&M University shows how human cells can be effectively recharged by replacing their internal batteries, so to speak, microscopic power stations called mitochondria. And the discovery could have wide-ranging benefits across healthcare and medical treatments. Wow, Ben, pretty great stuff.
Yeah, and like so many things, Ralph, whether we're talking about green energy, whether we're talking about, space, whether we're talking about the human body, Ralph, it definitely seems like it's never just one thing, never one silver bullet. As always, it's a mix of everything. So even though I've heard a lot of talk about, telomeres, one of those things, I've heard a lot of talk about, other parts of the body, and now we're talking about mitochondria. You got to be able to solve everything that is associated with aging if you're going to, kind of cure aging. And
Yeah.
Ralph, it's very fun to think, hey, maybe one day we can cure aging. It's very different.
Or at least slow it down or modify it and so forth to give a better quality of life in your golden years. And the golden years, friends, take it from me personally, golden years refers to all the money that's leaving your wallet to deal with your healthcare issues and other stuff like that. Anyway, going on with the story. This gets really interesting. The stacks of mitochondria in most of our cells naturally decline in numbers, slow down, and wear out with age. Once they start operating below peak capacity, they can contribute to multiple diseases everywhere, from the heart to the brain. In this latest study, researchers from the Texas A&M University used special flower-shaped particles called nanoflowers. This is really geeky, weird stuff, folks. Again, if you're a geek in medical science and want to learn more, come to the show notes, get the links, read the research papers, and so on. But anyway, let's go through this again. In the latest study, researchers from Texas A&M University used special flower-shaped particles called nanoflowers to scavenge damaging oxygen molecules, triggering genes that increase the number of mitochondria in human stem cells. Wow. Here's the key breakthrough. Those energy-boosted stem cells could then share their mitochondria with old and damaged neighboring cells. Wow. It's more of a battery swap than a recharge, but it means existing cells that have stopped functioning can get back to work. What? Oh my God!
They have and this is embedded in the article that you listed here. They have like a little 30-second video, and I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for all the green, to take over the red, or all the red to disappear, or something to happen. Ralph, something definitely does happen. This is definitely on the cellular level. I have no idea what's happening, but cool little video that's included in the article.
It is. It's fun to watch, if nothing else. So this new research can help aging or damaged cells regain their vitality without any genetic modification or drugs. Wow, without any genetic modification or drugs. And potential benefits, since mitochondria decline with age, this breakthrough could help combat diseases linked with aging, including those affecting, as we said before, the heart and the brain, et cetera, et cetera. This early research, folks, but profoundly important in terms of its implications. Wow.
Yeah. No,
Awestruck.
you solve this little problem, and like they said, this the mitochondria not being as effective means that you're at higher risk for all these other diseases. Hey, bring down that risk factor just a little bit all across the board. That's healthier living right there. That's really incredible. So amazing story. Good job too. I guess the shout out to the show is Texas, because they have tons of amazing research going on in their universities.
Great? Yeah.
A lot of fun. So, Ralph, with all these 4 stories, which again, you can find at computeramerica.com, you can find those. You will also find, if you scroll past story number 4, there's more. And these are the honorable mentions. These are stories that are, still great. You should definitely check them out. And it looks like Ralph is getting into the spirit, not of the holidays, but of CES. So we're going to go ahead and talk, one about CES, some about some other stories. Ladies and gentlemen, check out the honorable mentions. Ralph, you can at least give us the headlines so people know what to expect.
Exactly right. And again, Consumer Electronics Show, Ben's talking about big deal coming up here. This announcement from this particular company was released today. So we're okay for us to tell you this, a little preview. And this is may sound kind of mundane. It has to do with taking care of your teeth. I want you to think about U-shaped mouth guard, like the one I use every night to keep from crunching my teeth and whatever, but mounted on a device, and it's a sonic toothbrush system, okay? And this announcement is the world's first sonic toothbrush equipped with what they call SmartNose, an integrated connected sensor designed to analyze breath biomarkers in real time. And I will just say a little something about this. It's kind of interesting. The company is called Autobrush. They're a US-based company. And real quick, using a network of advanced sensors combined with artificial intelligence, AI for your teeth. Using a network of advanced sensors combined with AI, it detects specific volatile organic compounds associated with over 300 health conditions, including early-stage diabetes, gum disease, and liver disorders. Whoa,
Ralph,
okay.
I think you just gave the audience the best preview of CES that you could possibly give. And, Ralph, back in the day, it used to be, check out this new 120-inch television from Samsung. It's going to be amazing. Come check it out.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was check out the new Segway. This is even cooler. Ralph, the preview that you just gave is AI is going to be everywhere, embedded in everything. And yes, the AI toothbrush is here. Like this is probably the best look into CES one could get.
Well, yeah, and you raise a good point, because a lot of times the biggest TV or whatever cars and all this kind of big stuff, we'll call it that. That's great. That's cool. But CES has tons and tons and tons of appliances and small little devices and things that are health related and so on, such as this story. So check this one out. Come up to the show notes and access the links here for this little sideway or honorable mention. And it's a fascinating product and a very interesting company. But that was honorable mention number 1. The next one, we have 4 honorable mentions. So number 2, AI trained on bacterial genomes produces never before seen proteins. Very geeky, comes from arstechnica.com. Check that out. Next one is, scrolling down here, I love this one. Comes from Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in Washington, state of Washington. This is the MIT of the Northwest. Amazing people. Headline: Department of Energy and the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory partner together to power the nation's bioeconomy. There's a lot going on in this announcement and this story, and you can learn all about what is bioeconomy. Good story. And let's see, I think this, here we go. Our last honorable mention from Aerospace Global News. Astromechanica, that's the name of a company, teams with UK SME Helix to build hybrid electric engines for the next generation of supersonic aircraft. If you're into aviation technology, this is a great story to check out. And that wraps up our honorable mentions for this week.
Yep, a lot of innovation coming with with airspace and air travel and stuff like that. Ralph, by the way, we're gonna go ahead and start the outro music, but I do want to say thanks to you. Last year sometime we did a story about contrails and how AI is helping us to predict where planes can fly to avoid making them, and the effects on greenhouse gases, which I had no idea about. Ralph brought us that story. Ralph, as a continuation to that, I did just see a couple of weeks ago, Georgia, of the United States, Georgia actually banned contrails from being created in their airspace. So research
Wow.
like that having effect on legislation and real impact in states, hopefully across the United States. I would not have known that if not for the wonderful stories that Ralph picks out. So it's fun, Ralph, to see it, this research stuff, this early talk, come into its own and make other headlines. So Ralph, I want to thank you for pulling out these stories and of course the honorable mentions. And everyone out there, I want to thank you for tuning in. Tune in for the next week as we have CES coverage, and of course after that we have more Ralph every Friday. Join us here at Computer America. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Have a great time. Hey, Happy New Year. Hopefully this is a great one. Thank you for tuning in to Computer America once again. Everyone, have a good day. Bye everyone.